Hello, everyone. Good morning. If you're joining us live, good afternoon, everybody in the world. Hello, if you're watching this in a recording or in a podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited about this conversation about my guest today, Max Spero, right? I'm Bradley Emi
Yeah,
from Pangram. How are you guys today?
Hey, good. How are you?
Excellent. We're really excited. I know you guys must be very busy, especially with all the news coming out. So I really appreciate you guys joining us here. Why don't we get started by you guys introducing yourselves very briefly? Let's start with you, Max.
Oh, yeah. Hey, so my name is Max. I'm the CEO of Pangram. I have a background in machine learning. Um, I used to work at Google on applied machine learning and started Pangram about a couple years ago.
hey everyone, I'm Bradley. I'm the CTO of Pangram, and before working at Pangram, I was one of the first engineers on the computer vision team at Tesla Autopilot.
Excellent. Yeah, just a lot of machine learning, neural networks, I guess. And we will get to that, I think. But I think one way for us to start is the idea of Pangram, I think, and in general of this conversation is about kind of what is the right place, especially in education, for AI to be a tool and for when humans should play a role, right? And we've been with ChatGPT, with AI for a while, right? And there is this new research on archive about how people who are using AI continuously kind of start to get a sense of when something has been written by AI and something has been um, just written by a human, which I think is a very important thing here in education. So I guess just to get started for us, why don't you guys kind of talk a little bit about how did this process work or how it should work in education for educators who need to kind of build writing skills and other related skills, right? Like critical thinking and so on. How do you see kind of, I don't know, like the technology and the educators in this process of teaching people how to write?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I mean, I think like AI is obviously here to stay, and it's not going away. It's not going away anytime soon, especially in the classroom. I think like students are going to be using it, teachers are going to be using it. It's just like kind of like the new internet, the new smartphone of this era, and I think there's a real need to understand when it's being used and when it's not being used. And this is kind of true regardless of whether or not, like, whatever side of the AI detector debate that you fall on. Like, if you're not going to use AI detectors, then, you have to be able to, know when a student has been using AI just by reading the text, like by reading the text and understanding it, and knowing if the student has either successfully demonstrated their knowledge of the course material, or if they've decided to offload it to AI. And kind of certifying learning, I think, is kind of this problem that can't be avoided. Like, it has to be done either by a human or by an automated detector or some combination of the two. And I think this research was really important because it kind of established the baseline for, okay, like a trained person in spotting AI generated writing, like how accurate are they? Like how well can they spot AI generated text just by looking at it and reading it and understanding it with their own intuition? And kind of what they found was that actually a human can be fairly accurate in determining whether or not a piece of writing is AI or not. And you can look at a bunch of stylistic tells, you can look at the word choices, you can look at the phrasing patterns, and you can look at all of these linguistic signals that tell you whether or not something is AI. But what they found also is that, while humans can be accurate, humans also make mistakes. Like, humans are not perfect at this task. Like, I think what they found was that, no expert was more than 97% accurate. And overall, these while the majority vote of 5 experts was ending up at 99%, each individual expert still was only about 92 to 95% accurate at best, with an error rate of about 1 in 25. Um, And so, we talk about the false positive rate a lot in terms of AI detection being
Yeah, of
the
course.
number of students that, wrote something themselves and then a detector flags them as having used AI. And, the false positive rate of a human, even a trained expert, is still about 1 in 25, whereas automated detectors can actually get a lot better than that. So even though automated detectors are not foolproof, like, they have a non-zero false positive rate. I think one thing that this study showed was that, the false positive rate of an automated detector can be much lower.
Right. I'm sure you want to add something else, Max.
Oh no, I think that's great. I also think we see a lot of teachers who come to us and they're like, "Oh, okay, well, Pangram was actually really helpful because I thought this essay was AI, and then I checked it with Pangram and it said it was 100% human. So I'm able to just like go about my day and like not really have to like stress about that anymore."
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I see kind of, I don't know, like two side of the coin in this with this research is like one, it is possible, and I kind of think that, and it's good that there is research supporting that a human can spot whether the writing has been done by humans or by AI. But I think it's very important. I mean, at least in my intuition, the longer a person, a teacher spends with the students, the easier it will become to recognize whether that they have written that. And I guess you don't need an AI detector to see that student has kind of a writing style in kind of an assignment, like week after week, and then all of a sudden it becomes something completely different, using different words, different structures, and then you can say, okay, this is there's not something that's not right here.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, I think instructors have like a lot of context, like including, not only the students' like historical patterns, like, I know my students' writing, right?
Yeah.
But also like, a teacher also knows what, like, if I'm an 8th grade English teacher, I know what 8th grade writing looks like from having taught 8th grade English for many years. And I know what a typical response looks like. And that's very different from the ChatGPT response. So instructors in general have all of this context that they can bring into their own detection problem, and a lot of nuance that the AI detectors don't have. And that's a great point. But like Max was saying, I mean, I think the role of AI detectors is when you spot an anomaly. Like, I think a lot of instructors see that, like, they know their students, they already have a suspicion that something a student has turned in is not necessarily quite right, that it's different from their historical patterns. It's different from what 8th grade English writing might typically look like. And kind of what they're looking for is they're looking for a tool that can just help confirm their suspicion, because they don't want to go into a conversation with a student and accuse them of an academic integrity violation.
Exactly.
With nothing to stand on. Like, they don't want to just be like, oh, like, kind of just based on my, like, my sense of things, like, I can sense that that's AI, because the student can just be like, oh, no, I didn't use AI. And then what does the teacher have to stand on?
Right.
And so I think, like, part of the role of AI detectors is to just help, an instructor just get a little bit more evidence, and bring a little bit more kind of concrete data to the table when they're talking to a particular student about this. And it helps kind of ground the conversation. What we found in our conversations with a lot of professors is that actually, having the Pangram report with them when they talk to the student's actually much more likely to just admit that they used AI, rather than to push back against the accusation. And we're finding that this is just helping make these conversations just go a little bit smoother.
Right. Yes. I do think that kind of the other side of the coin of this conversation is, which I guess you pointed at, it is an inevitability that teachers need to understand AI, and they need to understand the kind of outputs that they generate. They have to be familiar in order to develop this sense of, to be able to kind of make the difference, right? When is it AI? When is it human written? And I guess less and less, but we still have kind of a lot of hesitance for many teachers to introduce tools. I do say that in some cases, it's because of the tool itself, not the technology, but kind of the interface. And that's why I think Pangram's approach is, as I was saying in the beginning, before we started, a little nuanced because like before, if you kind of look into Pangram, you kind of try to compare it to kind of a plagiarism detector, which I think it kind of works in a way, but it's much more than that, right?
Yeah, so Pangram is much more than just like a traditional plagiarism detector, because we do look at plagiarism actually recently, but now we also check for AI. And more than that, we'll tell you like where in the document we believe that there is AI, and like what are some tells, like what are the key words and phrases that AI uses much more commonly than humans do. And then so we're able to not only provide like a little bit of more concrete evidence for the instructors, but also help them tune their own individual AI detector, like their own one AI detector in their brain.
Right, like it's kind of funny, like we find that actually, like, you know, through the course of using Pangram, like instructors actually like feel that they're becoming stronger detectors themselves. So in some sense, like, you know, we're almost like teaching the teachers how to detect AI as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess another part of the message is you have the tools, you have an AI tool like Pangram, help you kind of look into the process of the student, kind of have a better conversation that doesn't begin with an accusation, which I think is really important. But it also lets you, and especially with this kind of the point that you're making, that you don't need this tool and you don't need to kind of end up depending on this tool for you to start kind of having this conversation. So I'm curious about like why did you think it was important to kind of show teachers that they don't need this tool, that they can have kind of a keen eye for writing? Because also I think, as you mentioned that before, most of the other tools don't really care about this. They just want to generate really good content regardless of if it's detectable or not. It's really not their concern. So I guess my question is why did you think it was important to kind of involve the human in this process of writing detection?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think we've realized keeping a human in the loop is like the most important thing. Otherwise, kind of like, what's the point? I
Yeah,
think especially in the classroom, like the act of teaching and for students learning, like it's a very like human to human process. And so I think like you can involve tools to like help that process, but you can't put a tool in place and say like this tool is going to do the teaching or learning. And so I think like ultimately AI detection itself does not like create a learning experience for the student, but it's there to help
right.
the
Yeah.
the educator show the student like what is an ethical, like how do I use AI ethically, how do I make sure I'm not just like plagiarizing my full assignment, how do I make sure that like the student knows like what is acceptable, what is the boundary.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, I think all, you know, great ed tech tools, they don't replace the teacher. Like no great ed tech tool is a teacher replacement. Like I think teachers kind of provide something invaluable that's very hard to replace. I mean, I think there's something about the way that humans interact with other humans that is really special. And I think great ed tech tools help teachers kind of offload unimportant or kind of things that take up a lot of their time outside of their normal teaching responsibilities. And kind of what we've been hearing a lot, and I think why so many folks are drawn to Pangram is because I think before, like, you know, yes, you can detect AI by eye, but it's a really time consuming and labor intensive process with a lot of uncertainty. And like, I think a lot of these professors, before they had the tool, they would, you know, spend a lot of time just trying to double and triple check, you know, their evidence. And I think Pangram ultimately kind of saves them a lot of time and helps them just get back to teaching. Like we talked to one, you know, academic integrity officer who was telling us that she spends 10 hours on a single academic integrity violation, you know, just trying to find all of the little tells and linguistic signals in the writing herself, just by eye, to figure out whether or not something whether or not a violation was committed. And so I think we think that like that's just not, you know, a good use of educator time. Like it's a better use of educator time to have a tool that they can feel confident in, so that they can have these conversations with students and just get back to their, you know, what they're great at, which is teaching.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's also kind of going in the right direction, the fact that you don't try to put Pangram kind of in the middle of the relationship between the teacher and the student. I want us to pivot a little bit just to talk about Pangram itself. But I do think it's like the right time, because I'm curious about like how did it get started, and how did you kind of figure this out? Because I think many people say that, like, yes, we need a human, but I think in the case of Pangram, it's kind of baked into the kind of the core value, right? So I was curious to know, like, how did it all get started? How did you two guys like meet and decided to partner up, and why did you find kind of this unique angle in for AI in writing to get the ball rolling?
For sure. Yeah. So Bradley and I, we've known each other for over 10 years now. We were in the same freshman dorm at Stanford. We've been close friends for a long time. Even when we both lived in the Bay Area, we like regularly go over to someone's house and cook and things like that. So we've been very close for a long time. We've also known for a while that we wanted to start a startup together. We've had a lot of ideas, but I think when GPT-4 came out after ChatGPT and started kind of just like taking over a lot of the news cycle, and we're realizing, okay, this is really like a powerful technology. How can we make sure that AI goes right and that it has net positive societal effects? And so for us, a lot of this was just making sure, how can we mitigate any negative effects of AI? And so that was like the early start. We started off by training models. We were actually operating initially in the like not in education at all. So for the first year of our company, we were talking with internet platforms, looking at using AI detection to detect fake reviews and like fake users, like bots that were using AI to generate their content. But as we got better and better in accuracy, and we got our false positive rate down from initially 1% all the way down to 1 in 10,000, we were a lot more comfortable entering into education. So then we started talking to teachers, putting up our platform for educators, and this is where we found like that there was just like this massive demand, and people were so excited to use a tool that actually worked, and we also learned so much about like the process of teaching and like how to integrate tools like this into the classroom. I'd never really like worked with Turnitin or any other plagiarism tools, even when I was a TA. So like this was all very new to me, and yeah, we've learned a lot since then.
Yeah, I can imagine. How? I mean, I guess you guys can help but think like you guys were planning on this route for a long time, kind of in a social network style. It was really exciting. I'm guessing like a lot of things. But you were telling me that you were working before in still kind of machine learning, but in other like a different focus, even before the reviews and before Pangram, I believe. Like as engineers. And one of the questions that kind of Jennifer was kind of hinting at is what does kind of helping cars drive autonomously, what does that have to do with what you guys do now about detection writing? Like it seems kind of two different words, but I guess they're not that different. So can you kind of illustrate
definitely.
that
Yeah,
for us?
happy to kind of expand on this a little bit. So I was a AI engineer on the Tesla team for a while, and I think kind of the Tesla approach to self-driving cars was great data makes great machine learning products. And what we found was that the strategy in general was that rather than kind of building these cars with expensive sensors that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to build, Tesla already has a fleet of millions of cars on American roads and actually worldwide. that are constantly collecting data and learning
Yeah.
from their environment. And so the strategy was like, let's use this fleet to build the best data that we can for self-driving cars. And kind of what that meant in practice actually was when a self-driving car just out there in the road, just being used by an ordinary driver, when it made a mistake, we'd be able to capture that event. So when autopilot was driving and then a driver took over because the autopilot did something wrong, that's really valuable feedback. And we can capture that event. We can capture the video log from that event, send it back to the fleet, send it to our team of data labelers to figure out what went wrong, label that event, and then automatically re-ingest it back into the training set. And like the scale of data in which Tesla operated was massive. Like you can imagine, like actually, like if you're looking at all of the video feeds of all of the Teslas in the world at any single given time, you see a lot of crazy stuff. And that's exactly the kind of like long tail behavior and long tail events that we needed to capture, because a self-driving car has to be so adaptable to all kinds of weird situations that learning at scale was really the only way that we could accomplish that. And so the thought is like, here we have this big data problem. We have so much data like that we can't even train on. And so can we use human feedback in order to figure out the best way to triage these events and get them back into the training set? So we've kind of taken a similar approach to AI detection, in that this is kind of similarly a very, very large data problem. There's a lot of data out there on the internet that is written by humans. And on the AI side, it's actually even greater because we have access to these models and we can generate an arbitrarily large amount of data using these models. And so it's also a massive data problem. And so how can we take this massive data set and use it to make a great data product? And kind of the intuition here was we came up with this algorithm called active learning, where we train models and then we just run inference on those models. We just run those models on these huge data sets, and we use the feedback that we're getting from these huge data sets when the model makes mistakes to re-ingest them back into the training set and have the model be continuously learning. And that's the way that we believe that the model can get continuously better, and the way that we can have the model get better all by itself, even without any of our own involvement. By sending the model kind of out into the world to like look for challenging examples and then generate AI examples that are similarly tricky to those, we ultimately build this detector that's learning this really, really fine line between AI and human text, because we're looking at the highest quality and the hardest examples. And that's kind of the basis of how we've gotten our error rate down from about 1% to 2% all the way down to like 0.01, 0.02%. And hoping to, see that even getting better over time. Kind of the main kind of parallels here are just like both self-driving and AI detection are very large scale data problems where you have so much data that you can't even train on all of it. And so you have to be very, very conscientious about the algorithms by which you select and filter the highest quality data for us to train on. And that's kind of, I think, where I've taken kind of my experience and kind of applied it here.
Yeah. Like if I'm following correctly, I think there are kind of 2 or 3 elements that are kind of key for both self-driving cars and plagiarism or AI detection. And it's first, you need like a lot of data, like massive amounts of data, very representative, very robust. From that data, you need kind of a model, right, that's able to understand or to detect the edge cases and I think writing is like this. Writing, as a writer, I would say, and someone who trains or who studies or practices the writing, it's common that they arrive to places that they don't expect, maybe, or which is kind of one of the nice things about writing, at least on a personal level. But you need that model to be able to detect all of these edge cases. But then even with a very powerful model, and I just say, like, having a lot of data could actually be a limitation for the training of the model. So you need to involve humans, right, to start helping detecting kind of some of the features and kind of augment the model in a way, right? I don't know. Is there any piece that I'm missing in this model of?
I would say that, like, I think what makes a great machine learning product is is really the underlying data. And I think for us, that data is largely human written data from before 2020 and AI data written, that we generate in house. And what I would say is that in general, actually, like there's actually a lot of dirty work that goes on behind the scenes in order to make a really good data set for training these AI models. Like I think in the early days, we would spend almost all of our time just like thumbing through examples, like looking for errors, like looking for, idiosyncrasies that the model could potentially overfit to, looking for just general problems in the data set. Because I think what makes a great data set for machine learning is not just scale. Like, I mean, everyone talks about scaling, right? Like OpenAI is always talking about like, we need more data for scaling. We need to build more data centers so we can scale the model. But volume is only kind of one half of the story. I think the other half of the story is both quality and diversity. And I think these are things that, if you want high quality and if you want high diversity, there has to be a human in the loop going and auditing the data set. And so in the early days, Max and I would spend hours and hours and hours. We've probably spent like hundreds of hours at this point just auditing data for quality and diversity.
It's
and
just
even
like reading AI generated like essays and other documents, and then reading the human ones and trying to figure out like what is what.
You guys kind of did that on your own.
Yeah. Spent so many hours on this, built our own tooling.
And even today, we have a full-time employee whose job it is to just look at data for us. Like that is his only job. Wow. He is basically like going through data and auditing it for quality and just making sure that we have the best available data to train on. And I think, this goes back to the kind of human in the loop. It's like, well, like we are building a machine to detect AI generated text at the end of the day. But in order to build that machine, like we kind of need the best human oversight at every step of that process. It's kind of like, you're working in this factory and, you have to do quality control if you really want your end products to be the highest quality possible. You're not just going to run each step of the factory pipeline without checking the results in the middle. And so we do a lot of that before we ship models. We have a really extensive QA process. We have, several evaluation sets, several human in the loop QA tests that need to be done. We call these like vibe checks. We just send out the model and play with it internally for a long time. And we also do red teaming, which is we have people intentionally go in and try and break the model and find faults in it in order to figure out what are the problems with this and how can we do better. So I think in every step of kind of building this machine to detect AI generated content, there are humans at every step of the way trying to make sure that this is the highest quality thing that we can build.
Yeah, I mean, you did mention that, companies like OpenAI, they want to kind of have all the data and have the best models out there. But I think many people are starting to realize that, at least for education or for some specific processes, that's not necessary and that may not even work. Can't help but think when DeepSeek came out, which they showed that at a very reduced scale, still pretty expensive to be fair, to build a model to train it, but there are ways in which you can be kind of smart about it and kind of show that you can be smarter about it. You can be, I don't know.
DeepSeek's a great example of just the fact that with a great team and great data, you can be a bit scrappy and still produce a great product.
Exactly. Yeah. And I imagine you guys have been kind of scrappy at the beginning, but I do have to mention, and it's not common that we kind of break news in this, but just yesterday, right, it was announced that you guys got a $4 million raise in a round by several private equity firms. I mean,
we recently closed $4 million. We've raised this from venture capital. Really excited. I think we have a lot of investors who are really excited about not only the size of the opportunity, but also just how pressing of an issue it is. And believe in us to continue executing here.
Right. Like I mean, without spoiling too much, I wonder what would you say was the thing that convinced these companies to kind of support what Pangram is doing, support kind of this vision forward? I guess humans are a key part of it. And again, I don't want you to kind of spoil the beans.
The question is, what's next for us?
Yeah, like, I mean,
according
to the VCs, like what do they think is next, or what do you think it's what's going to keep you guys around?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot. I think there's like so much we can do to integrate better into people's workflows. Like right now, having a dashboard that people can paste text into or upload documents, that's good, but we can go a step further. Like we have our Canvas integration, our Google Docs integration through like our Chrome extension. With our Chrome extension, you could just highlight anything on the internet or in a Google Doc, and then check it for AI. And I think like this is super valuable too. And so how I see us moving forward is just like improving the ease of use, keeping up with the new models, pushing our false positive rate lower, catching the newest frontier models, and making sure the product just gets better and better.
Right. And in terms of kind of the AI by eye, like kind of the topic of or the title of our session today is, I'm guessing there is a lot of work already done and coming up in terms of the experience of the use by teachers, right? So they can, I'm not sure what kind of interface features should there be, but the point would be for teachers to be able to see and start kind of developing this sense of when is it AI, when is it a human. And
the thing I always recommend is to just go into ChatGPT, paste in your assignment and ask for a response, and then try the same on Claude and Gemini, and do a few of these and start reading them and just understand. I think you'll very quickly start to see commonalities between all of them.
Right. Between
but
them.
Yeah, to your point, like I mean, I think part of the plans for what we're gonna do with arrays is work on interpretability. I would say, like, I think this is going to be a big focus of our research, and I think one of the things we hope to solve in the next year or two is not just having the most effective AI detector on the market, but also teaching people to understand like why certain text looks like AI, and not just like answering the question of like, is this AI or not, but answering the why, like why is this AI, and what are the signals that the model is picking up on that can help tell us why something is AI and why we believe that. Because I think if you have interpretability, then you can have even stronger conversations. Like it opens up even more evidence that instructors can use and understand what is the authenticity of student work, especially as the line between human and AI gets a lot more gray too. Like I think a lot of instructors are bringing AI into the classroom and allowing students to use AI for some things, but not for other things. And so in this case, like I think interpretability is going to be key because it can help tell us, like, did the student use AI just to kind of refine their ideas, or just use it to help correct spelling and grammar, or help a non-native English speaker improve their English? Or did the student use AI to just complete the entire assignment without any oversight whatsoever? And I think answering that question is going to be really important as AI becomes more integrated into the classroom, and as instructors, go from just being like, you can't use AI at all, to being like, how can I use AI as a collaborative assistant, and teach students how to best use AI, as a partner, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm wondering how a teacher can, well, first of all, better understand AI and better understand kind of the purposes and the role that it has kind of in an educational process, right? Which, again, it's something that I don't think many AI companies kind of focus on the way you guys do. Like, let's help teachers to kind of move forward with this. Detection is one part of the picture, but then there's also, in many cases, teachers are the ones introducing AI tools, AI features to students for the first time ever. So I'm curious, like, what would you, at this point, would tell a teacher that's starting to get into this process of, first of all, detecting and then kind of helping work through that outcome in the educational process? What would you kind of advise the teacher in terms of kind of getting started with this process, getting started with AI, and kind of ease off their minds a bit also?
Do you want to take this one, Bradley?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked to a lot of companies that are building AI tutors and like other AI products for schools. And I think, what we see in general is, one of the problems with just ChatGPT or like Claude for Education, if you just, go to the website, is that these AI tools are just like very eager to just like give you the answer to whatever problem that you have. Like, if you have this math problem that you're struggling with, for example, I was a math and physics undergrad. And so like I had a lot of really difficult classes where I was just really struggle on my problem sets. And, I think that was a lot of hard work. And, if I had AI at the time and I asked ChatGPT to help me with my homework, it would probably just give me the answer. Like it wouldn't really like try and push me in different ways that like a TA or a really high quality teacher might, to, just give me like little hints or like get me started in the right direction. It would just like give me the answer. And that's really not very helpful for learning, because I think like, when you're trying to learn something really hard, you actually need somebody to kind of like push you, but without giving you the answer. And I think that's a little bit where AI kind of falls short today. Like, I think it's really difficult to have AI kind of just give you a little bit of a push rather than just giving you the full answer. And so I think some of the ways that I've really seen a lot of success with teachers and students using AI is when, I think rather than when you're giving the AI a question and just asking it to answer it, that's usually not so helpful for learning. But I think when the AI is used more as an assistant, like when you're asking it questions or having a debate with it to try and get you to expand your thinking, I think that is where AI can be the most helpful, like today. Like, I think if you're, for example, like if I'm trying to figure out, what to write about for my final term paper in a political science class, I think it's great because AI can help you brainstorm, 50 ideas that you can then pick from. Or like, I think deep research is an incredible tool because it automates a lot of the background research that I might have had to do for this task. And so I like to think of like AI as kind of like, being really helpful in two regards right now. One is just kind of being like kind of a conversational partner and an idea generator, helping people brainstorm. And I think the other path is, just offloading busy work. Like, I think anytime a student or a teacher has, some menial tasks that they need to do, like for instance, like finding citations for a particular paper, or like figuring out like, okay, like what is all the context that I need in order to write the paper? What is the data that I need to support my argument? Like kind of like all of this background research stuff. I think ChatGPT, deep research, Perplexity, like all of these tools are really, really useful for just doing something that, you could do, but would just take you a lot of time. And I think kind of that's where I would start rather than, having AI,
do everything.
Try and be your teacher necessarily. I think AI is great as like kind of an all-knowing assistant, but as a teacher, I think we still have a long ways to go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what you mentioned, in my experience using AI, and I didn't think it was that relatable until you talked about it. And it's I have to deliberately ask AI not to give me the answer for something that I want to do or I want to understand. Like, let's say I'm writing a plan or kind of proposing something. I need the AI I need to deliberately ask him not to give me the answer and try to kind of walk me through the steps. And it's always challenging. It cannot keep itself from going beyond and doing, I don't know. And I wonder, like, why was it designed this way? to kind of just, it's kind of saying, oh, don't worry about it, don't think, don't create, I got it. And I say, but why would that be kind of your starting point of that interaction with a user?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think these language models, like, they go through this phase called instruction tuning. And in instruction tuning, these language models are specifically trained to, when given a prompt, to just give you the answer and follow instructions and obey orders. And so that's kind of the behavior that's built into these models. And so even when you prompt it, like, hey, don't give me the answer, it's very hard for the model to undo that because it's kind of baked into its internals during this instruction tuning phase. It's also kind of why also like language models really struggle saying like, I don't know. Like language models like are very, and you know, this is a big problem that a lot of AI researchers are working on right now, which is reducing hallucinations when a model doesn't know something and it just like spits out something nonsensical or something that is just wrong. I think, yeah, that's another problem with these LLMs is that they're not self-aware of their own knowledge. And so it's very hard for them to, when you give them an unanswerable question or when you kind of give them something open-ended, for them to just be like, I don't know. And so I think, yeah, that's another kind of area that I'm really looking forward to seeing some progress in. And I think that would help it kind of be a better teacher and be a better collaborative partner in the educational space.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, some people say that hallucination is kind of inevitable if you want to work with AI. Some others may not be so sure. But I guess, and
well, I think that's why it's so great for idea generation and brainstorming, because in these cases, hallucination is actually exactly what you want. You want it to just kind of fabricate like a whole bunch of ideas that may or may not be good ones, right? And so I think, yeah, it's kind of just knowing your tool and kind of knowing what it's good at, what it's not.
Yeah, and I guess that was kind of my final question for you guys to kind of wrap things up here, and it's what kind of problems, I think you've hinted a bit, but just as a summary of this conversation, what challenges in your line of work are you kind of most excited about tackling, in which then will become, I would hope, new features or new solutions provided by Pangram, kind of down the line. So how do you guys see like what your work and the kind of things that you can get done or solve? I think that's a big word, but let's just use it kind of in the coming months or years.
I want to echo what Bradley said. I'm just really excited about this interpretability work and being able to understand like what makes something AI and communicate that effectively. I think that's really important, especially as AI becomes more incorporated. And then also I think another side I'm really excited about is being able to distinguish these like AI assisted edits and like something that's co-written by AI versus something that's fully generated. I think that's going to be increasingly important as well, as we just have a lot more tools that help people write with AI to different degrees.
Yeah, we're internally calling this project AI invasiveness. We
Okay,
are trying to figure out like, oh, did somebody use AI just for a little bit of like grammar touch up, or did they use it to write the whole thing? And kind of exploring this whole spectrum and taxonomy from, okay, I just used AI a little bit to clean it up, to maybe I used AI to help rephrase things, to maybe I used AI to add some new ideas that weren't in there before, to I used AI to write this paper. Like, I think like exploring that spectrum and turning what is currently a black versus white problem of human versus AI into more of a continuous spectrum where we can kind of distinguish all of the shades of gray. I think that's something that we're really excited about, and hopefully, you know, going to show up in our products in the coming months.
Awesome, excellent. Well, I'm really looking forward to it, to that interpretability challenge, which I think it is, and what you guys come up with it. Congratulations again for the round, for all the growth and kind of the success that you've had already.
Thanks so much.
And we hope Pangram continues to invade in a good way.
Thank you so much for having us, Chris.
Thank you guys so much, and thank you for your time. I know it's very busy out there. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.